Dumelang Huyamora, good morning, Sanwanani, and welcome to the Dumo Show, where we talk all things motivation, education, and of course, entertainment. Today, we do have a special guest for you, fashion designer, entrepreneur, and overall businessman. This man, I respect him for the way that he thinks, the way that he brings forth his vision, and I'm super glad for having him here today. Ari, the designer, welcome to the show.
My brother, shout
Oh,
out.
yeah,
That's what's
man.
up. Much love, much love. It's a super honor to be here. And just for your listeners, also like who may not be fully clued in on what you do a lot of like crazy stuff, and you inspire me to be more independent when I don't have the help that I need. Just by your creation. So it's
Thank you,
mutual
man.
love and respect.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So this month we're just gonna be talking a little bit about value. In this episode, we'll be talking value of time, and then in the following episode, we're gonna be talking about the value of money. So, in terms of the value of time, what is your current opinion on time? What do you think about it?
Mm, 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 mm. So, so that's crazy because this is my opinion on like the value of time. And anybody who knows any of my like who's connecting with me on any social media platform or even like through like my fashion brand made by
Yeah.
Ari, like they know uh, the message about honoring your progress. And I believe uh, like every single day is an opportunity.
Yeah.
You get the same amount of opportunity each and every single day, and you get to choose what you want to do with that.
Exactly.
So the value of time is like it's immeasurable. Every second needs to be like utilized
Yeah.
towards whatever you deem success as. Success can be $1 billion, pounds for another person. Success can be having starting and building a successful family that doesn't have lack. Success can be something emotional, something spiritual, whatever it is that you deem it as, and the complexities of that fall into that definition of success. Like um, the value of time is progressing towards like that picture,
Yeah.
that identity of success that you
Yeah.
form for yourself.
Yeah. Okay. So you did touch a little bit on yourself, but just tell us a little bit about some of the things that you do.
So I am a fashion designer, as you mentioned. I'm also an entrepreneur, and so I have a clothing company called Made by Ari, through which is a channel for me to use clothing to influence people to be able to progress towards success. Oftentimes, like we are living in this life, and it can be fast paced, it can be slow, depending on the season you're in mentally or whatnot. Um, but what we don't do is we don't acknowledge like our progress. I'm sure we both have individual like dreams and
Yeah.
aspirations, and us being here right now is not the fullness of where we want to be. The equipment that we use is not the fullness of where what we want to be able to use.
Yeah.
However, even us being here is progressive towards that, and we would rather like we should honor that, acknowledge that, and then continue building upon that. So yeah, that's what I do through clothing. I basically um, channel that message in a creative manner that's also visually captivating and intriguing. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. 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 Um. So yeah, it's so great to have you on the show. Like I said, so we're talking value. So one of the things about time that we have to understand is that as a construct, there are certain things that you can do within a certain time frame. There are certain things that you can't do. Like you said, we have a certain amount of time in the day. So 24 hours. How long is 24 hours to you? What do you value it for? What do you do within it? It's all about understanding what you can accomplish within a 24-hour period, because there are some things that we look at people and see how far they are, and we think to ourselves, I'd like to be as far as that person is. I'd like to succeed as much as they have. But we don't actually realize that maybe they're putting in 16 hours in a day and we're putting in 8, and then the other 16 that we just chilling. You
Yeah.
know, so it's all about understanding how time works and how you value it as an individual.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we're just going to talk about is compounding time. Have you heard of that concept?
No, no.
Okay, so the concept of compounding time is basically it's more focused towards experience, right? So when we say compounding time, it's basically you taking the time that you have had over a period of weeks, days, months, years, whatever it is, and you fold it in on itself.
Okay.
So essentially, what happens is you take your experience that you've had, let's say over 3 years. How long you've been a fashion designer?
I would round it up as 3 years, but probably more than that unofficially.
Okay. Okay. So we're just gonna use you as an example because you're the
Okay.
guest here today. So you've had, let's say, 3 years experience,
Mhm.
right? So when you started off in fashion, how long maybe did it take you to design one garment from start to finish, right from the concept till the very last piece of fabric?
Mm, it would probably be like, um, because of having other activities packed within the week while having to create that. I'd say it's 2 to 3 weeks.
Okay. And then
Yeah.
right now, how long do you think it takes
It would probably take less, a week, depending again on
you? What
like
it is?
how time is like the time is utilized uh, and set, yeah, and budgeted for essentially.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. So essentially, when we talk about compounding time, it's basically the elements of you take a look at when you started off, took you about 2 weeks, versus how long it might take you now, about a week or less. So essentially, over that time period of these few years, you've gained a certain amount of experience and expertise.
Real.
So essentially, you're compounding your time. You're saying that over this period of time, I've gained this experience, I've gained this knowledge, and essentially, if I charge you for this amount of money, for X amount of money, you can't actually complain,
Real.
right? Because essentially, this is what it comes down to. Because we are going to touch base on money in the next episode. It comes down to how much you're charging right now versus how much you used to charge. You know, a lot of people say, so you take, for example, the longer it takes you to make the garment, someone might think that you should need to pay more for that because the less time it takes you, that means the less time is going into that project, which
Yeah.
means less money,
Mhm.
right? But what happens is, with the longer you take, it's because you're not yet as experienced as you can be. Whereas if you're taking a short period of time, you've gained experience over years,
Mhm.
and people ignore that, and that's compounded time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's basically what it is, and it's a good thing to know, and it's a good thing to understand, especially in the entrepreneurship era that we're in right now. A lot of people are going into business. A lot of people are creating startups. You know, a lot of people are following and pursuing their dreams, their passions. So it's a very, or personally, I should say, it's a very important thing that we should know about.
100%.
But yeah, then there's budgeting time. We'll speak about budgeting when it comes to money in the following episode. But what do you think about the concept of budgeting your time?
Absolutely important,
Mm.
bro. There's a question that you touched on, and I'm just gonna use it
Yeah, yeah.
to channel into this to what you're asking now. Um, Budgeting time is absolutely important. You touched on like how one person in 24 hours they are putting in 16 hours, and then while another person's putting in maybe 8 hours of
Yeah.
work, and then they chilling for 8. You still gotta sleep and
Yeah.
all this other stuff, right?
Exactly.
So budgeting time, I'm gonna use that and just like add it together. Budgeting time is super important. Like you can't change what you don't know.
Mm.
You cannot. You,
Yeah.
you cannot have a significant impact on what you don't know. You know, the only space where having a significant impact on what you do not know, the only space in which that applies is with if you're applying faith to it. But other than in that specific context, you cannot change what you don't know. So if you don't know how you're using your time today, like how do you expect to get the most out of it, right? So and this goes with like everything, bro. Like we got 24 hours, right? That's what we tell ourselves, right? Do we really though? I mean, I want to break this down real quickly, right? 24 hours. Depending on the human being, we either sleep 8 hours, 6 hours, less than five. I don't really suggest people do what they do, right?
We do it.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but
depends on the day.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Exactly. Let's just say on average, for like I use me as an example, about 6 hours on average, right? Cool. 6 minus that 24, that's like 18 hours left. All right, cool. I've got 18 hours that I can use, right? Cool. So if I'm working from home as an entrepreneur, at least I don't have to commute and move up and down most of the time, right? So in that 18 hours, I know I gotta eat, I know I gotta excrete, I gotta urinate, I gotta bath, I might exercise depending on my lifestyle. And also, just all these little things. I might get called by like a housemate to help him out with something. Whatever it is. That's already like things that you cannot control. There can be an emergency today that you can't plan for. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, right? I've already counted 6 things. If I say on average, each activity, excluding commuting to work or school and back, each activity is about 30 minutes to accomplish. That's like 3 hours dead minus from that 18. You've got 15 hours now. And you still gotta choose like what do you do with that? You're in a relationship. This time you gotta put it into that. It's minus X amount of time. Bro. Even if you don't always like necessarily calculate that time, it's gonna go. It's gonna go to use. So with all of these factors, when you start breaking it down and looking at it, you realize that like the time that I have is very minimal, which is why I'll tell people. Small side note, and I'll come back. Like if you're unemployed, like you have the advantage of time.
You do.
If you are employed, you have the advantage of money, which you can exchange for time, right? So look, what I'm saying is, in the context of somebody who is employed, they're working 8 hours. I've already counted 15 hours left. Add minus that 8 hours. Now that's like 7 hours you've got left, right? And you add like 2 hours for on the road, commuting, going to work and back. That's 5 hours now you've got. You've only got 5 hours to be productive on something that is personal. And you're tired when you come back. And you know what I mean? You might not feel like working. You might not feel like doing something. So whatever that amount of time, regardless of like the amount of time that you have to be productive, whether it's 5 hours for another person, or it's 13 hours for another person, or it's 15 hours to be for another person, what's important is that you know that. Because once you know it, for example, if you're working, once you know it's okay, I only got 5 hours to be productive a day on what I want to build, I gotta really use that 5 hours. You know what I mean? So budgeting is like super important for however you do it. Some people budget the night before they sleep. I personally budget the morning of. However works for you, as long as you know how you're using your time and you budget it well, you'll achieve some good results.
I'm so glad you touched on that thing of the 24-hour breakdown. We're actually going to get into that. But I'm so glad that you mentioned it, and specifically in the context that you did. So I just want to take it one step further, right? And actually say that a lot of people, they want to work towards their dream, they want to work towards their passion, but then comes in I don't have the time, right? I believe that's not true. The way that you broke it down, I'll take it one step further and put in the elements of what scientists want us to do, which is 8 hours of sleep, right? So for me, it's honestly something that is just so odd, because the entire day is essentially broken up into 8 hours, by way of the way people want things to be. You got 8 hours of sleep, you got 8 hours of work, and then you have 8 hours left, right? So if we take that example, right? So you're working 8 hours, you're sleeping 8 hours, you only got 8 hours. You're traveling for about, let's say, 30 minutes going that way, 30 minutes coming back. That's an hour. You got 7 hours left. Let's just use an example of an adult with a child, with one child, right?
Yeah.
So you got to take your child to school. You got to pick them up. So that adds maybe, let's say, 10 minutes. So we're knocking off 1 hour, 1 hour, 20 minutes. Um, then you maybe go to the gym, 30 minutes, right? You go to the gym, 30 minutes. You get home, you have to cook for, I don't know how long does it take to cook usually. It depends what the, depends on the dish that you're making. But I'd say roughly 30 minutes. What else? You gotta wash dishes. Maybe you gotta iron for the day that you have. So you gotta iron your clothes in the morning, or your clothes for the next day. You have to bath, like you said, and do all of these other things. So that knocks out in total maybe 5 hours. You got about 2 or 3 hours left, depending on who you are, depending on your lifestyle. You got about 2 or 3 hours left, and then comes in the element of streaming. Then comes in games, you know. Then comes in chatting and social media,
Yeah.
and then you say, "I don't have time." It's not that you are lazy. It's not that you don't want to do that thing. It's just that there are other distractions that are stopping you from doing what you want to accomplish. So you got 3 hours that you're knocking off binging.
Yeah,
There's 3
real.
hours that you're knocking off doom scrolling.
Yeah,
You
that's
know.
real.
So the the concept of budgeting time, I feel like it's such an important thing to understand. Not just for a single day, we were using just a 24-hour example here, but not just for a single day, for your week, for your month, for your year. You know, there's even the method of using SMART goals. You know, making sure that your goals are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time based. Um, so if you apply that at least into your year, even if you're not doing it for every month, every week, every day, but if you apply it to your year, and then you take that and you actually break it down, and so if there's somewhere that you want to be in by the end of this year, how are you going to get there? You break it down into your months. In order to reach that goal at the end of December, in December I have to be able to have accomplished that much, which means in November I have to have accomplished that much. In October, September, August, July, June, all the way back to the top to January. And then if you like, you can even take it a step further and you break it down even into your weeks. How many weeks you got? You got 52 weeks in a year. So in January, if I got 4 weeks in Jan, how long should I spend on each task? How long should I spend on each activity? I feel like that's something important that people should understand, because a lot of people, they want to accomplish certain things, but they don't get to that point of breaking it down enough that they can achieve it. And then they come along and they say, no, it's impossible. Or they say, no, I don't have the time. You know, so it's understanding time and budgeting your time is, it's a very important thing that you have to be able to do in order to be able to achieve the goals that you have. You know, yeah, man.
Yo,
I was just going on and on and on about that.
That's key, bro.
But yeah, it's a very critical thing. It's a very important thing that you need to understand as an individual. Um, yes, you do have work. Yes, you do get tired, but there has to be certain things where you draw the line.
Yeah.
I'll use myself as an example, right? If I commit, let's just say this week, I commit to writing a chapter per day for a novel, right? If I commit to that, I have to do it. I have to get it done. At the end of the week, I have to have 7 chapters that I've kicked out. If I don't, there's a problem. Someone has to get in trouble,
Yeah.
and there's no one else to blame.
That's real.
It's myself. That's it.
That's real.
Right? So you have to be able to have discipline, because what I always say to people is, where motivation ends, discipline has to take over.
That's a fact.
If it doesn't, you're not going to get to where you're trying to go.
Fact.
You know.
That's a fact. And yo, that's so important, because that really like had it touched somewhere within me when you said like people will say that I don't have the time.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's a scripture that says, "My for my people," I may be butchering it, So don't come at me in the comments.
Paraphrase. Paraphrase
Actually,
version.
you know what? Come at me in the comments and give my boy more. Let YouTube or whatever this gonna be know that this is happening.
Yeah.
Come at me in the comments. It's okay. But there's a scripture that says, "For my people perish for a lack of knowledge," and it's like that is so key, and it applies to so many things around the world. You know, and in that specific aspect that I don't have time. You just don't know how you're using your time.
Exactly.
And also, not to jump ahead into another episode, but even with money, when people say I don't have the money, I don't know where my money is going.
Yeah.
It's just not tracking and doing the work to know what's going on with your money. But specifically, even with time, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
You have the time every single day, because trust me, if you get time to be on your phone scrolling, and then you see time, between me and you, well, and the audience now, but honestly, like I've been in many situations where I find myself on YouTube Shorts or whatever, and I'm just scrolling, and I'm seeing the hours pass. I'm like, I'm supposed to be sleeping right now, and I'm seeing the hours pass, and that happens so regularly to a point where I was like, it would happen even with a podcast. I'd be like, I'm just gonna watch the Dumo show for just 5 minutes. It's almost time for me to sleep, but before I sleep, let me check out 5 minutes. Then I watch the whole episode and the next episode. It's like the Netflix loop that says you have 5 seconds to decide if you continue watching the series. So it's just like that. So I found myself in those situations where I found the time to do that. I was up and I slept less just because I was consuming content. Just because I was consuming content. Maybe it made me laugh. Maybe it inspired me. Maybe it was motivational. Maybe it taught me something that I probably didn't retain. But look, I found that time. So it's like, it's not a matter of not having time. To a point where this may help somebody. To a point where I found that happening so often that I would check out podcasts in the time that I'm supposed to be sleeping. I told myself, you know what? Instead of me just checking out this podcast, knowing I'm supposed to be sleeping and seeing the time pass, let me work and listen to this thing that I'm genuinely want to listen to, because I didn't find the time to listen to that podcast during my day. Let me do some work while I'm listening to it, and then at least I'll feel a little bit better about myself. And I do make more progress towards my definition of what success is. So that's what I'll say. We do have the time, but gotta find it, and you gotta know.
And it's not a bad thing though.
Yeah.
To spend watching series.
Really?
I know myself. I sugarcoat it as research.
Yeah, you told me that.
I sugarcoat it as research. So whenever I'm watching a movie, watching a series, I just say, "Nah, I'm doing some market research." But it's not a bad thing to find time for that entertainment.
Real.
It becomes problematic only when you don't know how much you're putting into it. And it's just that hour's passed. Oh, that hour's passed. You watch one episode, and after that episode is finished, it's already 2 a.m. in the morning. That's the that's the important part. It's knowing where the line is and having a line and being disciplined. But yeah, man, I think that's all we have to talk about for this episode here. It's been quite interesting. I feel like there's a lot of nuggets of wisdom that we dropped there. If I was listening to it myself, I really would put it on repeat maybe at least 2 or 3 times. I feel like there are some important things that had to be shared, that we did talk about, and I'm so glad that you were on this episode, man. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. My pleasure. It's a pleasure being here. And I'll just leave that final message with whoever is listening, and that's that. You're not here unnecessarily just for nothing. You're built for something great. So know what you're doing with your time. Understand that. And then take it from there with the steps and the action and the discipline. That's what I gotta say. Right, designer.
Thank you so much, bro. And thank you, big thank you to all the listeners on Spotify. Thank you so much to the viewers on YouTube. That's where this video is, of course, going to be dropping, and of course you probably are watching it right there. So if you do want to follow us, head over to Spotify. You can find us, at the Dumo Show. You'll find us on Spotify. Have a listen, whenever you feel like you have the time to, even if you're just driving to work, commuting, going home, whatever it is that you're doing, you could just pop onto Spotify and listen to the audio rather. But thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, Senate.
Yeah.